Okay, so welcome everybody. I'm Lyndon Hughes, I'm the head of direct sales for ANS. So I'm delighted to have you all join us this afternoon. I'm joined by our partners ITQ Digital, who will introduce the speakers in a moment. Before I get going, so we are now the new ANS. So those of you on the call may have formerly known us as ANS as UK Fast. We are now the new ANS, and our mission really is to take digital transformation to all businesses, both large and small. And one of the ways in which we help to achieve that is by partnering with our partners ITQ Digital. And I will just start by sharing my screen and the presentation. Hopefully everyone can see the opening slide. I've now lost visibility of everybody. So if you could, Sarkis, can you just confirm you can see the slide okay?
Yeah, the slide okay, yeah.
All good, fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, so we've done the housekeeping, so I'll just move it on. So I'm delighted to introduce our speakers from ITQ Digital today. Bridget, I believe, is just joining, and Sarkis is currently with us. Sarkis, you happy to continue just until Bridget is able to join us?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I can do a quick introduction to both of us.
Please, yeah.
It's just typical. We're doing a webinar on technology, and one of the speakers' technology is letting them down today. So there you go, sod's law. So yeah, I'm Sarkis. I'm one of the founders of ITQ Digital. I'm also the operations director. And Bridget, who will be joining us shortly as well, is one of the founders and the commercial director of ITQ.
Amazing, thank you, Sarkis. So just in terms of an introduction to today's webinar, so really the purpose of putting on this webinar is that we've gone through we're coming out of the back of COVID, as we all know, over the course of this year. And there's still a lot of challenges that the e-commerce organisations are navigating with regards to Brexit. So the purpose of today's session really is for the ITQ Digital team to share some of the lessons learned from that experience over the last couple of years, and what we're starting to see around Brexit and some of the challenges there, but also to share some success stories of some of ITQ Digital's clients, which we'll come on to later in the presentation. So that's just a broad introduction of the session today. And if I could just ask Sarkis just to go into a bit more depth on the content that we'll share.
Yep, no problem, Lyndon. Thanks. So yeah, the items we'll be covering today in this short session would be the effects of Brovid, which is a word that's sort of been made up, if you like, to combine the last sort of 4 to 5 years where we've had Brexit, and we've also had a pandemic, which has definitely changed the way people shop online today and their expectations. We'll walk through a few examples. We'll give you some things to consider and some actionable advice, and then there's some follow-on contact information if you want to get in touch with us to talk more about maybe some of the issues you're having, or just to talk in general about how things are going for you.
Thank you, Sarkis.
No worries.
So just to really kick things off, Sarkis, you and the ITQ Digital team have been working with e-commerce businesses, day in, day out, really now for a number of years. What can you just sort of describe what kind of impacts you've seen the last 6 years have on UK e-commerce businesses, as a result of COVID and Brexit?
Yeah, not a problem. And we can cover off some of the elements of Brexit first. If you want to just go to the next slide, Lyndon.
Yeah.
Talk through that.
Okay.
So for some, it may feel like Brexit happened a long time ago, and maybe asking the question, why are we still talking about it? And I think the reason for that is because a lot of online businesses still haven't felt the full impact of it. A lot of businesses are still struggling with some of the different rules. And to be fair, not all the rules have been clearly defined yet by the government. So I think there's still a big cloud of confusion around what is the best approach to trading with Europe, essentially. I think there's obviously loads of new import and export rules that have been introduced. And again, depending on the different countries or where you're trading from, they may differ. And I think that's also had an impact on shipping. We've obviously felt issues and a squeeze on logistics in the UK because of the pandemic, but I think some of that started way before the pandemic with Brexit, things taking longer to arrive. Obviously, the tariffs and the customs and I guess all the paperwork that is now needed to either bring products into the UK or to ship products out of the UK to Europe. So it affects it both ways, basically. I think another element that has had an impact is price increases. So there's almost a free will, if you want. So it's depending on the country that you either trade to or trade with, they're free to impose different tariffs to the UK, and with that can come price increases to your customers, or just a headache in terms of dealing with shipping, increasing costs for shipping, and again going back to the tariffs and the tax as well. VAT is a massive one. We have quite a few clients that trade quite a lot with Europe in terms of exporting the products, and business in the UK can no longer take advantage of the EU VAT refund system, which in itself is quite complicated. There's various brackets for it. It depends on the type of products you're either exporting or importing, and again, it's almost a minefield of different rules and rates. And for a business owner, that can be quite daunting, because we usually rely on our accountants or lawyers to give us advice for that type of thing. And if you don't have that type of advice on hand, it can be quite a daunting task to work out what's the best approach to getting your product to your customer.
Thank you, Sarkis. And that's oh, bear with me, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, and so Brexit's very much a challenge that businesses are facing right now. But clearly, over the last few years, the pandemic has shifted consumer trends and certainly business operations. So, do you mind just sharing a few points around the impact of COVID and what you've seen over the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID is an interesting one because it's obviously had a massive effect on people's lives, and the knock-on effect of how consumers behave online today is as a direct result in some aspects of what happened during COVID. A lot of online businesses have had to adapt. Some have unfortunately gone out of business. Some have thrived. Namely, pharmaceutical and food verticals, for example. But there's definitely been a massive shift in how consumers shop these days, and it's impacted online businesses in a way where you didn't trade online and you were forced to trade online. You maybe had loads of bricks and mortar shops where you had to close down some shops and just refocus online. And then there are businesses that have gone completely online, where they've actually closed their full footprint of physical stores and just focus online, simply because the pandemic made them do that in some respects, whether it was financial or whether it was just a business decision. Those things did happen. And I think what happened out of the pandemic was that we've almost got this new wave of new customers who are even more impatient than they were before the pandemic, and we do quite a bit of business with online shops in Europe, and I can definitely say that UK shoppers are quite spoilt in a way in terms of the level of customer service that is given to UK customers, in terms of how quickly you can order something and actually get it to your front door. That type of service doesn't exist in Europe, where you have next day or same day delivery. Maybe in a few countries in Europe, but certainly not the majority. So they're definitely not as mature in terms of the level of customer service we give to our customers in the UK. And I think that only got worse during COVID, because people wanted everything now, and there was a massive panic around getting products now. I want it before my neighbor, I want it before my friend in case it runs out. And I think that's ingrained in the customer's mindset. So even though COVID is still around, it's not on the news every day. We don't have the ticking numbers of how many cases and how many deaths in our face all the time. But it's a disease that's probably going to be around for a long time. I don't think consumers are going to quickly get out of the trends that they were used to. I think we're going to see, at least for the next 5 or 10 years, they want things as quickly as they got them through COVID. So it's basically up the game in terms of, if you're in the same vertical as your competitor, if they deliver quicker than you and they may be even slightly more expensive, the customer will probably go for them because they want it now and they don't want to wait for it. So I think there's been a massive knock-on effect, and I'd urge business owners to not think that that's going to go away imminently. I think that's definitely around to stay.
Yeah, thanks, Sarkis. A great insights into to the impact of both Brexit and COVID. Just to try and bring that to life, you got there's some real life examples that you're going to take us through.
Yep.
So here is Bridget. I'll just admit Bridget. Well, hello, Bridget. Glad to have you join us. So just in terms of the first example, Sarkis, do you want to just talk us through your client Pulsar and what how they've been able to get through the last few years of uncertainty?
Yeah, not a problem. So Pulsar is, and we're going to talk through 3 examples, and some of them touch on the fact that Brexit has impacted their business, and others it's more COVID related, but it's just obviously examples to give you an idea of how they've adapted. So Pulsar came to us probably about 2 and a bit years ago to redevelop their online store with a whole host of integrations to their logistics, warehousing and accountancy systems. So we did an integration to SAP Business One, amongst many other things. But I think that the thing that really stood out with Pulsar is we were sort of mid-cycle in the project when COVID hit, and we had various calls with the owners, and most importantly, they didn't press the brakes on the project. They didn't panic, because they realized that through the scoping exercise that we'd done, we'd come up with a very robust list of elements that were going to add value to their site and create efficiencies and allow them to manage getting the product from their warehouse to the customer's door, be that a personal customer or a business customer, of which they deal with quite a lot. And it wasn't about how many people can we get rid of to save money, to build efficiencies into our website. It was, how can we make our business smarter to make sure that the people that work for us can do things they really need to do, and ensure that the website and its integration to our whole ecosystem makes our business much smarter than it currently is. And one of the elements that we built in, which was extremely key, was they have many different customer groups with different pricing elements based on quantity or the type of customer or where they are in the UK or the type of vertical that they operate in. And they spend a lot of time doing that sort of stuff manually. And Brexit, COVID obviously presented them with quite a lot of issues around delivery and shipment of their product. Their products are not all made in the UK, so it presented them with quite a range of issues. But having the flexibility built within the system to allow them to manage the shipping costs and manage their customer pricing, because of the fluctuations in raw materials or shipping costs in the market because of the pandemic and Brexit, allowed them to manage that process really easy and adapt to it extremely quickly. And we feel that it's one of the things that has really stood them in good stead. And they've come out of Brexit and especially COVID much better for it, and they've got a much leaner approach to their online business, and it's helped them all round, basically.
That's great, thank you, Sarkis. I'm delighted to show you just in time, Bridget, to cover the ANS example.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
thanks,
thank
Lyndon. Thanks to everybody for your patience. I was the one who had the tech problems the gremlin crept in on me just at the wrong time. But I'm delighted to be able to talk about NC Jet Ski. They have embraced both Brexit and COVID challenges simultaneously, and I'll just explain how they did that. So they are a jet ski components and jet ski supplier in the UK, up in the northern part of Cheshire. They are a strong player in the UK market. They also had sales into Europe. They decided to back off the sales into Europe through Brexit, and because of the uncertainty around all the legislation, paperwork, and so on, and basically focused their efforts during COVID all around upgrading their systems. So streamlining their back office systems. We re-platformed them to a new e-commerce platform, to Shopify. We also helped them together with their accountants to put in a new accounting platform, and also a new back office system. So we deployed Vico with our partners at Vico, and they have really capitalized on the time that, if you like, during lockdown to get those systems up and running. They've got a far more up-to-date UX and design refresh across the site, and they've got themselves set up now for people to click and collect. So a real success story of an extremely small business, to be honest with you, but they were very short on time. They're now in a position where they've taken on a little bit more resource, but they're set up with the automation. They can focus on the products that they offer, the products that they need to essentially, the products that they want to focus on. They're bringing on the product lines, and altogether, all credit to the directors of NC Jet Ski.
Fantastic, thank you, Bridget. And then the final example that we would like to share with you is Prestige. Stockist.
Yep. I'll talk through that very briefly in the interest of time as well. So Prestige are a long-standing client of ours. We've seen them through 3 or 4 different generations of online shops. We're actually in the middle of doing a complete redesign of their current site, which should be launched quite soon. I think Prestige are a great business because their owners really buy into the ethos of making sure that everything is as efficient as possible, and ensuring that their site is built customer first. That may sound like a really obvious statement, but a lot of online shops don't build their sites for their customers first. They think about how they want it to look rather than how it should be for their customer. And one of the things that Prestige did, which we had to react to extremely quickly during the pandemic, was they never had click and collect. So it's a business that's always done very well. They have seen year-on-year increases in sales, but purely from an online transactional point of view, and not the online transaction, but come and collect your product if you want type of scenario. So they quickly learned through COVID that they had to adapt very quickly, and together with ITQ, we obviously put some advice together on the best approach for it, but integrated a click and collect solution for them, one that's actually quite highly customized, because they deal with a lot of fresh products, where they can actually bring in fresh mozzarella or fresh pasta, for example, from Italy. And it's about giving the customer choice. So you go onto their website, you choose your fresh pasta, and you can select a specific day and time to come and collect it from store. And the reason for that is because it obviously needs to be fresh. But there's the whole logistics element wrapped up around it as well, where it's all about the timing of when they themselves can order the fresh product, when it can get actually shipped into the UK, and then when the customer can collect it. So there's the customer experience to take into account, but then there's all the logistical nightmare, literally, of making sure that the right days and times are all in sync, but synced up to their suppliers as well. And I mean, the main reason they did it is because their online business was doing really well, but then with the squeeze of COVID on the general logistics and shipping ecosystem in the UK, things were taking longer to get delivered. And what they didn't want to do was annoy their customer. So they gave them another option, which was the click and collect option. And they're keeping it on the site now because it's worked really, really well for them. And they've actually seen a shift in people wanting to collect stuff, and building in stuff like if you come and collect it, you can save a couple of pounds on your transaction, has also helped to sort of sway the customer into using that option as well. So something that worked really, really well and that they bought into, and another success story. If they hadn't done it and their owners didn't want to do it, they would have definitely lost sales for sure.
Thank you, Sarkis. Some really great examples there of customers you worked with. So just to move on to actionable advice, really. So I guess to start with, Bridget, perhaps you can share some of the actionable advice that other organisations that are on the call today may be able, that are in similar situations, may be able to take away from today's session. Bridget?
Absolutely. I mean, there's 7 points there, but I think I'd start by making sure that you do get some external advice. I think we found that those customers of ours and people that we've spoken to have actually got external advice. They've actually moved much more quickly, got to understand the new Brexit rules and got themselves set up. So it's really key that you get some advice from an expert, probably through your accounting firm. The other things that obviously need reviewing is obviously with the additional costs of both distribution and also the customs and effort involved in satisfying those regulations. Your pricing needs completely overhauling and reviewing in terms of the different markets that you're moving into. You need to have a look at whether you're still competitive or not. I would say, don't disregard that too quickly, because in Europe, many of the online businesses are not anywhere near as far down the track as UK online businesses are. So don't assume that you won't be competitive. And then there's some of the other sort of more, I guess, less interesting things that you want to do, but you'll need to be obviously updating your policies and procedures on your sites, making sure that shipping information, delivery information, timings around those are all clearly stated and messaged on the site appropriately. So yeah, important. And in terms of the actual site itself, if you're selling into other countries, you need to optimize your checkout process. We've seen people make mistakes here where they just bolt on different shipping options. Obviously for shipping into other countries, you just bolt on different payment providers, which you do need to do. But when you do that, you need to be careful that you haven't actually created a friction point in the checkout. So we spent a lot of time doing that, in helping people to make sure that they provide those facilities for shipping options and payment options, but at the same time they still preserve their conversion rates. I think that was all. Those are all the points I'd like to raise.
Yeah, thank you, Bridget. And Sarkis, if I could ask you just to share some points on advice and lessons learned around COVID.
Yep, I think the first one is very short. Be transparent. Sounds obvious, but a lot of businesses didn't do that during COVID and they got burnt. What I mean by that is if you don't have the product, don't sell it. And if you have a product, be very transparent about the delivery timescales. The worst thing you can do is get a customer to buy something and then send them an email an hour later to tell them you don't have it in stock, but they can buy something else. You're just going to annoy them, and the chances are they're not going to come back to you. So be transparent around what you have in stock and what you don't, and be extremely transparent about your pricing and also your delivery timescales. Consumers are not stupid. A lot have probably been burnt, unfortunately, during COVID, and that's what they look out for. And if you're not saying that on your product page or your category page or in the banner of your website, it will cause mistrust and probably lead them to shop somewhere else. So that's the first point. Bridget touched on the second one about optimizing your checkout process. Can't stress enough, consumers are impatient. They want 1 or 2 or 3 clicks and they want to get their order confirmation page. And if they're not getting that, chances are it's a friction point, and chances are they'll go to someone else that can just give them an easy checkout experience. So it's something that needs to be looked at the whole time. There's always new technologies, there's always new templates, there's always new things coming out when it comes to customer checkout. So don't assume yours is perfect. Always have a look at it, always look at your competitors, and always look for what's the best and implement it. Being flexible as well, it goes back to the checkout process really, but it's just more a point on customers like options on shipping, they like options on payment. don't assume that the shipping method that you could do is a stupid one, and don't assume that the payment method you could do is not one that you like personally as a business owner. You have to give consumers choice. You have to have nearly every option available out there. You know, PayPal, pay by debit or credit, pay in 3, pay in 4. There's so many different providers out there. Just ensure that you understand your customer and you're giving them all the options that they might want. It's not about what you want, it's about what they want. And I think since COVID, there's various ways you can market to your customers. Customers are probably sick of general text messages, general emails. They want something personalized. So again, it comes down to your customer data. If you're not doing anything with your customer data, you're missing a trick. You know, people want to feel special on their birthday if your product suits them on their birthday. They want you to recognize special moments in their life or annual year when they maybe have bought from you at a specific point in time. So use your data in an intelligent way to connect with your customers and make them feel like you care about them, and actually that you do actually care about them, because then they're going to come back and they're going to shop with you all the time. So use your data wisely to market to customers in a personal way. If you're not doing that, you need to be doing that. And hosting, nothing worse than a slow website. A lot of online store owners take shortcuts when it comes to hosting because there's obviously loads of options out there. I'm not saying it because this is a webinar with ANS. We've been partners with them for a very long time. There's a reason for that. It's because they're good at what they do. And you need websites that are fast, and you need websites that are on a robust hosting platform. Unfortunately, online shopping spiked during the pandemic, but cybercrime also spiked during the pandemic. And that's something that's not going to go away. It's on the rise. So if you go for what I call a Mickey Mouse hosting solution, chances are your site will either be very, very slow and annoy your customer, or you'll be susceptible to hacks, which will obviously bring all sorts of data integrity issues to the fold for your business. So take all those things seriously and give them a lot of thought and consideration, and chances are you'll have a great foundation to build a solid business on.
Thanks, Sarkis. Just going to the time, so we're just gone on now onto the last slide, just to consider some of the main points as people go ahead on their own journey. Start with Bridget.
Yes, absolutely. I think the 3 little case studies that we talked through has demonstrated what those people who survived and thrived, what did they do? They did embrace some of the changes really, really quickly, but they embraced them in a way that if you like, lent itself towards going towards an automation of their business processes. Because let's face it, a lot of these things to do with COVID and Brexit have put resources under pressure. That's, you know, human resources. And if you can automate parts of your business and get those running smoothly without input from your staff, then the staff can deal with the if you like, the unexpected, can deal with understanding your customer better, can deal with moving into new markets. But without the automation systems in place, then you're bogged down with issues around providing customer service because there's lots of complaints, or you've got a lot of issues around fulfillment because you don't have good, accurate figures on your stock control. And so I think the main takeaway is you know, look at automation opportunities, and those that have accelerated those projects have really, really thrived. But there's still loads of businesses out there who could start to do that very, very quickly and be in a lot better position, because something like COVID will come along again. Yeah, that's my key message: automation.
Thank you, Bridget. Just in the interest of time, I'm just going to move on to the final slide. And Bridget, do you want to just summarise how sorry.
Oops.
Do you want to summarise how
yeah, so,
how people on the call can get in touch if they want to? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Lyndon. So, well, first of all, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Sarkis, myself, and Lyndon. You've listened to some of the stories that we've recounted and shared with you. We'd very much like to hear your stories, hear how Brexit, how COVID has impacted your business. And we do this through a free clinic. We call it a clinic, where we just talk openly, honestly, myself and Sarkis, with yourselves, understand what your challenges are, and come back with some suggestions, some really concrete suggestions where you could strategically focus your efforts. And if you then choose to work with us, that's absolutely great. If you don't, not a problem at all. At least you would have had, if you like, a second or third or fourth opinion on how you perhaps focus your efforts strategically over the next 12 to 18 months. So if you want to contact either of us, I'd be delighted to set up a clinic call with yourself and your colleagues, and my contact details are on the slide, and feel free to get in touch or click through to the ITQ website where you can book a free clinic online.
Thank you, Bridget. Just before we close off, I would really like to extend a thank you on behalf of ANS to Sarkis and Bridget for bringing their expertise to today's call and today's webinar. I'm very conscious we've run over, but has anyone got any sort of burning questions they just want to come online now and ask, or post in the chat? No, I'll take that as a no. We will share the contact details of the ITQ team and the ANS team. So if you do have any questions and would like to reach out, then please do. And that just leaves me to thank everyone for joining. Have a great rest of your day. And again, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks
Bye
everybody.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye bye.